Welcome to Skill 5A. This is page 1 of 2 pages. So when you finish this one, you'll want to do video number 2 either today or on the next day that you have available. For this skill, we're going to work to rewrite fractions as equivalent fractions, which is something you've already shown that you're able to do, but we're going to do something special here. We're going to use what's called like denominators. So in a minute, I'm going to show you what that means, and then we're going to jump into that skill. Make sure you have your notes folder open to Skill 5A so you're ready to take the guided notes with me as we go. So Skill 5A is really similar to Skill 4, where you were rewriting a fraction as an equivalent fraction. The difference here is we're going to rewrite sets of fractions, and we're going to do something called like denominators. So this might be a new concept for you, so let's review this terminology to make sure we're all meaning the same thing when we say like denominators. Please box with me right here where we have like denominators. Sometimes like denominators are also called common denominators. That means the same thing, but the big idea is that like denominators or common denominators means that the denominators are the same. So below we have this example of 2/3 and 1/3. And so these are those 1/3 piece pattern blocks. I'm going to color them in blue to show that they're those blue pattern blocks. And if you look at these, hopefully you could see that these fractions are not equivalent. 2/3 is not the same as 1/3, but they do have something in common. Both of these fractions are expressed as thirds. They're built using the same sized pieces. One of them has 2/3, 1, 2, and one of them only has 1. So they're not equivalent values, but they're both made using the same pieces. So 2/3 and 1/3 are fractions with like denominators because they both use thirds as the size of their pieces. The cool thing about having like denominators is it makes it real easy to compare fractions and to put them together or take them apart. The opposite of like denominators is going to be right below it. It's this unlike denominators. It's got that un in it, which means not. Sometimes these are also called uncommon denominators, so not common denominators. That means that the denominators are not the same. So looking below, we have these examples where we have 5/8 and 5/6. So I'm going to go ahead and color those in. These ones are not built with pattern blocks. These ones are built with just drawing the hole and partitioning it or cutting it up. The first one is cut into eighths, so I can color in 5 of those eighths. The second one is built with sixths, so I'm going to color in 5 of those sixths to show these two different fractions. There we go. So looking at these fractions, I can see that although they're both fractions and the numerators both have 5, they have unlike denominators. 5/8 is cut into eighths and 5/6 is cut into sixths. So these are fractions with unlike denominators. One fraction uses eighths, the other uses sixths. So they're not cut into the same size pieces. When I look at these, I can't take some of the sixths from this and put them over here. The piece size is wrong. So they're both fractions, but they are not like fractions because they're built out of different sized pieces. So that brings us to this new skill we are working on. The big idea we are working with is this one. If two fractions have unlike denominators, we can rewrite them as equivalent fractions with the same denominator. That is, we can express them so that their pieces are the same size. Here's an example that we can do with drawing. This is our draw it today. I have 3/4 and 2/3. And I want to rewrite them both in terms of twelfths. I want to cut them up the same so it's easy to compare and to move them around and to use them together. When my fractions have the same size pieces, I can do more things with them. So let's start here with this 3/4. I'm going to get my color crayons or my markers. There we go. And I need to color in 3/4. So this person has taken a whole number and they cut it up into fourths, and I can color in 3 of them. Hopefully you do a nicer job coloring than I do. The other fraction we're working with is over here, and it is 2/3. So I'm going to color in 2 of my thirds. Now, on this one, they cut the lines going the other way. You don't have to, but it's going to help us see what equivalent fractions or what like denominators really means when I've got equivalent fractions. All right, so I have 3/4 and I have 2/3. And what I want to do is turn them into twelfths. So I'm going to take my 3/4 and I'm going to move them over here. I'm going to color this in, and then I can see that they've taken a whole number and they've already cut it into twelfths for us. So I'm going to take my 3 pieces here and move them over. So I moved those 3 pieces over, and when I do that, you should be able to see if I count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. My 3/4 is now being written as 9/12. These are equivalent fractions. I just moved those pieces over and cut them up into twelfths. We can do the same thing with our 2/3. I'm going to move over. Let me get it to work. There we go. I'm going to move over those 2/3, and then I can count the pieces that I have. I can say I have 2/3, but if I cut them into twelfths, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That gives me 8/12. So what I've done here is I've taken 2 different fractions, and I've written each of them as an equivalent fraction, but I made sure that they used the same denominator. I rewrote 3/4 as 9/12, and I rewrote 2/3 as 8/12. That way when I look at them, they're the same sized pieces. I could compare them. Now I can see because 9/12 is bigger than 8/12, I know 3/4 is bigger than 2/3. I could push all these pieces together and count them up to see how many. 9/12 plus 8/12 would give me 17/12. I could do some subtracting. 9/12 minus 8/12 is 1 more 12th. So now that I've got the same size pieces, it gives me a lot more possibility of what it is I could do with these fractions. The cool thing about finding equivalent fractions where we have like denominators is this even works for multiple fractions. You don't just have to do this if you have 2 fractions. So below, I have an example of 3 different fractions that we cut up to make them all have like denominators or common denominators. So let's check those ones out. For these ones below, I have 1/2, so I can color that in. And I have 2/5. I can color those in. And I have 3/4. I can color those in. So these are the 3 different fractions I'm working with, and right now they all have unlike denominators or uncommon denominators. They're all expressed in different size pieces. This one's written as halves, this one's written as fifths, and this one's written as fourths. When I look at them, I can't easily tell how to combine them or how to use them because their pieces are different size. So the cool thing is that I can cut them all up into a piece that's the same. I can cut my 1/2 into 20ths, I can cut my 2/5 into 20ths, and I can cut my 3/4 into 20ths. Now I can use the draw it strategy. I'm just going to color these in. There's my 1/2. Here's my 2/5. And here's my 3/4. And now that we've used this draw it strategy, I can just count the pieces to know how many 20ths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That was bigger than I intended. 10 20ths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 20ths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 20ths. In this way, I can now easily compare which fractions are bigger and by how much. I could add them all together. I could add two of them and subtract one away. Now that they're all expressed in the same size pieces, there's a lot of different things that I can do with them. This is the end of the first page of notes. Go ahead and check your notes and make sure you have all the stuff written down. And if there's anything in your notes that you're missing, go back through the video and find what you need before moving on to the page 2 of your Lesson 5A notes.